Now, if you're registered to vote in New Haven, you probably think that we're going blue and it doesn't matter whether you vote. But actually, the Connecticut governor's race is concerningly close.
The two major candidates are Bob Stefanowski, a Republican, and Ned Lamont, a perennial Democrat election loser who's just kind of there.
Plus, there's the unaffiliated Oz Griebel. And the most important thing about him is that some random guy wrote a rap about him that got a couple thousand views on YouTube. Can we play it?
No.
Brutal!
Regardless of your personal political views, this election matters, and we want to help you make an informed decision.
Now, obviously, none of you have watched a Connecticut gubernatorial debate because it's a Connecticut gubernatorial debate. So we've decided to consolidate the major points in this reenactment in case you're still undecided.
Please welcome to the stage Ronnie Baratin as the Republican Bob Stefanowski, Jocelyn Wexler as the Democrat Ned Lamont, and standing in for unaffiliated Oz Griebel is this sign we made that says, "The average of both candidates' responses, but somehow worse."
Hello, I'm Bob Stefanowski, and I'm just like you. I was a General Electric business executive who made $9.7 million in 2017. Just like you. I'm Bob Stefanowski, and I'm a regular guy. I have 3 mansions in Madison, Connecticut. They're small mansions, just like yours.
I'm Ned Lamont. In 2006, I ran for Senate. I won the Democratic primary against Joe Lieberman, but then he ran as an independent and beat me in the general election. That's one of the only times that's happened in American history. Then, in 2010, I ran for governor and lost again to Dan Malloy. But now Dan Malloy's retiring, so I'm going to go for it again. Woohoo!
Thank you, candidates. Let's get on with the debate. Connecticut's economy has been struggling recently, so do either of you have any specific plans to fix it?
I will make the economy less bad. Please vote for me. My wife said if I lose again, the family dog gets my spot on the bed. Woohoo!
Yeah, listen, I have no real plans for how to fix the economy, but I'm going to distract from that by claiming Ned Lamont and Dan Malloy are the same person. Here's an actual real website I made that's literally called lamontismalloy.com. The homepage makes it look like Ned Lamont's face is some kind of...
So, aren't the Kids' Choice Awards in, like, March?
Like I said, in just a few weeks.
Now, as we all know, when too few people vote, we can get outcomes that don't reflect our country's fundamental values.
Like Adam Sandler winning the 2007 Kids' Choice Award for Male Actor of the Year after his role in the movie Click.
Campaign ads are running, Yale Votes and YCC are sending out emails.
Yeah, I've actually gotten a few of those myself, but my Gmail's mostly full of Webkinz notifications.
You should really clean out your inbox.
Yeah, well, Christy, my tiger pup, just won first prize in polar plunge, so I think I know what I'm doing.
Now, these midterm elections are the most important of our lifetime, and yet still, less than half of eligible voters are expected to turn out. And a recent poll found that only 28% of 18 to 29-year-olds are certain that they'll vote in the upcoming midterms.
When you ask people why they don't vote, they give a lot of different reasons. But the underlying cause for not voting is pretty much the same as the reason for any decision, a cost-benefit analysis. So a cost-benefit analysis is based...
Jamie, it's Yale. I think we can safely assume that everyone's taken intro micro.
Well, for the film and media studies major who knows that econ is for normies, let's go over a classic example of cost-benefit analysis. Does it make economic sense to tell Stacy's mom that she's got it going on?
Now, in order to decide if it makes economic sense to tell Stacy's mom that she's got it going on, we have to determine whether the benefit of telling Stacy's mom outweighs the cost.
So the benefit is equal to the probability that Stacy's mom thinks you have it going on, multiplied by the expected value of actually getting with Stacy's mom.
So, by simple math, the benefit side would reduce to the probability that you're not the little boy that you used to be, multiplied by just how much Stacy's mom has got it going on.
You should only tell Stacy if this is greater than 7.
Wait, why is the cost 7?
Because the cost is the opportunity cost of not being able to get with Stacy anymore. And Stacy's a 7. I can say that I'm a 7.
Maybe in now that we've established what a cost-benefit analysis is with that very clear example, we can use it to analyze the midterm elections.
Logically, you should only vote if the benefit of voting outweighs the cost.
In other words, you only vote if the probability of your vote being the decisive vote multiplied by the expected benefit of your candidate winning is greater than the opportunity cost of voting.
Adam, how much of your own money would you have paid for Hillary Clinton to have won the election?
I don't know, like all of it.
Which is how much? You have fun consulting this summer? How much you get? 100? 1,000? 20 million?
For the sake of example, let's say $1,000.
Okay, so how much time would it take for you to vote?
Like 2 hours max.
So what would you say 2 hours of your time is worth? How much could you make in those 2 hours?
Well, my going rate is $50 an hour, but if they get handsy, it's $75.
Okay, so let's say $100 for 2 hours. Now, looking at this, it might seem like the benefits outweigh the costs. But when you factor in the probability of your vote actually being decisive, which is roughly 0.0000006%, the costs outweigh the benefits by a huge amount.
So, unlike confessing your love to Stacy's mom, economically, it never really makes sense to vote.
And sure, no ordinary citizen is going to make a cost-benefit chart, but these are the underlying reasons most people don't vote. The fact that it never makes economic sense to vote makes voting a perfect example of a collective action problem.
Now, a collective action problem is a situation where everybody needs to work together to achieve a goal, but where your individual actions are pretty insignificant on their own.
Collective actions problems are basically the group projects of real life.
So let's say that like 30 high school students have to write and perform a skit for Mrs. O'Brien's biology class.
It's about mitosis.
Now, if everyone participates, your biology skit will be great. And if you as an individual don't work hard on it, it's probably not going to matter.
But if nobody works on it, you'll end up with a cringy biology-themed rap to the tune of "Fuck the Police" that will not only get a bad grade, but will end up on YouTube and haunt your future, less culturally appropriative self for eternity.
Now, collective action problems are really tough because on an individual basis, nobody is incentivized to do the right thing.
But we as a society have managed to solve some of these problems, or at least make things better. And we've done it by changing the incentives on both sides of the cost-benefit equation.
For example, littering.
Everybody's better off if nobody litters, but for each individual person, littering is super convenient. One person littering doesn't really affect the environment. The problem is that if everyone litters, our cities will look just like my dorm room, covered in human feces.
Now, we as a society stopped people from littering by teaching them that it was wrong. When you show people pictures of a pigeon laying their eggs in a Doritos bag, or turtles chewing on cling wrap, it upsets people and it makes them less likely to litter.
No!
It's okay, Jamie, move on. Jamie, the picture's gone. That means the problem's not there anymore.
That increased the cost of littering. It became socially unacceptable and people felt bad when they did it.
Now, we also increase the cost of littering through regulation. We find people who litter. Now, another example. Yale students are super busy. Now, when your suite mate invites you to an a cappella concert or, a political satire show, each individual person might have an economic incentive to not go. Now, if everybody goes, we all have a great time. If you, a single individual, don't go, it probably won't matter. Nobody's probably going to notice. But if nobody goes, it's extremely awkward and Jamie looks like a loser in front of his parents. But at Tilting and Windmills, we solved this collective action problem by increasing the benefit of coming.
That's right. We offered 4 flaming hot Cheetos that Caleb found in a dusty old shoebox to one lucky audience member. We also increased the cost of not coming by telling our friends if they didn't come, we'd murder them in their sleep.
Exactly. One last example. If everyone goes to Harvard-Yale and does the Saybrook Strip, then it's a fun game day tradition.
If one person chooses not to participate, probably doesn't make a difference. But if too many people sit out, instead of the Saybrook Strip, it becomes the Saybrook Indecent Exposure.
Which sounds interesting, but just doesn't have the same ring to it.
The Saybrook Strip problem is solved by a social incentive, being part of a group. It's fun to strip down with all your friends, and you get to be part of this cool and very weird tradition. Plus, there's a chance you'll be like this guy and become Adam's iPhone background. There are tons more examples of collective action problems that have been solved or improved with incentives. If you sacrifice personal time to go to a protest, you might get to meet Katy Perry.
If you go through the effort of recycling, you can get some money back when you turn in bottles.
And if you get your kids vaccinated, you might get to meet Katy Perry.
What?
Adam, she could be anywhere. No idea. So collective action problems can be solved using education, regulation, and shaming.
And by applying those devices to the cost-benefit equation, we can change people's incentives and try to help them do the right thing.
So how does this all apply to voting?
Well,
That's right. The way we see it, there are 3 ways to do this. First, decrease the cost of voting.
U.S. elections are held on a Tuesday, and for most of us here tonight, the cost of voting on a Tuesday is equivalent to getting off our asses and maybe skipping section.
Which, if we're being honest, you're probably going to do anyways.
But the fact that voting day is on a work day means that millions of Americans have to choose between the very intangible benefit of voting and the very real benefit of working for 2 hours.
One of the most basic ways to decrease the cost of voting is to move voting day to a weekend or mandate paid time off for working Americans to go vote. Alternatively, we could just make voting day into a national holiday. Most developed democracies already do some version of this.
And it's not like America's typically stingy with creating federal holidays. I mean, we literally give people time off work for President's Day, but not for choosing the actual President's Day. The second method to balance the equation is to increase the cost of not voting.
In other words, we have to shame people for being bad citizens.
Well, sort of.
I was thinking of using pig's blood to write, "Fuck you," on the front doors of all non-voters. You know, something simple.
Actually, positive peer pressure can work too. A 2007 Yale psychology study found that people are substantially more likely to vote if their own personal turnout will be publicized to their neighbors and friends.
So voting is just awkwardly trying to fit in. It's like the adult version.
Already been implemented in Australia.
That's right. You get chokeslammed by a muscular kangaroo if you don't vote.
Well, Jamie, you get chokeslammed by a muscular kangaroo every day in Australia. But also in Australia, anyone over 18 who fails to vote can be fined and basically, we need to recalibrate the voting equation to make the benefit outweigh the cost.
Our first idea is called the cash cab solution. Voting booths are so boring, and so were taxi cabs until 2005 when the game show Cash Cab came out. Suddenly, every cab became a potential cash cab.
Okay, and
our version is called the vote boat. Every time you get on a boat during the month of November, there's a non-zero chance that your boat is the vote boat.
The vote boat?
The vote boat takes you directly to eastern Siberia.
Okay.
It gets progressively faster every hour you refuse to cast your ballot.
Why?
There's a disco ball, LED lights, and an extremely lifelike robot of Al Gore chanting in Russian about civic duty. Everyone knows the old saying,
No, we don't.
if you don't vote, you can't get off the vote boat. Vote boat!
Our last idea is an improvement to an existing benefit to voting. Those little I voted stickers. And all jokes aside, the act of voting is something to celebrate. And if creating novelty, personalized voting stickers is what it takes to get people to the polls, well then that's exactly what we'll have no choice but to do.
We did that. This first one is, I voted because non-voters are mouth breathers.
I voted and I slept with Megan Fox. One of those things is true.
I voted and I slept with Zach Galifianakis. Both of those things are true.
I voted. Twice.
I thought the voting booth was a porta potty, but I'm happy with my choice.
The voting booth curtain already had all these piss stains on it when I got there.
I voted to procrastinate my DS readings. By the way, I'm in DS.
I voted absentee because I get high off licking envelope glue.
I voted in Russian in the US election, and there was no collusion.
We can talk all day about the incentives of voting and how to balance the cost-benefit equation to get people to the polls.
But when November 6th comes around, nobody's going to be thinking about this equation. What most potential non-voters will be thinking is, but I still don't feel like going to vote.
I don't wanna. And voting out of the state via absentee ballot is an even bigger pain in the ass. You're a busy college student. You probably don't feel like spending 2 hours getting your shit together and mailing in your vote for assistant secretary dog catcher.
Yeah, you're a busy college student, but busy with what?
Think about all the other dumb shit Yale students are willing to spend 2 hours on.
Like shopping classes you were never going to take anyway,
Going to section,
waiting in line at Durfee's,
going to Leo,
standing in the corner at Wode's.
all the time you've spent saying the words, we should get a meal sometime, plus the one time you actually got that meal.
Waiting in line for a Harvard-Yale ticket even though you've never made it to the game a single time and will definitely be passed out in the Fenway parking garage by 10:42 a.m.
Explaining why switching your major from English to econ doesn't make you a snake. Like, it's not like you're gonna go work at Goldman or anything.
Justifying your frequent trips to Goldman networking events by saying you're just seeing what the stuff is all about.
Explaining that, look, your summer internship at Goldman was in the socially conscious investing branch, and Goldman's like actually pretty woke.
Honestly, Goldman is basically a nonprofit.
Our point is, we know you. You're not that busy. You're all at tilting at Windmills. If you think your time is too valuable to spend voting, you're wrong.
And you shouldn't need a detailed cost-benefit analysis to see why. But if you do, there's a little something about the 2018 midterms next week that should give you an even more compelling reason to drag your ass to the polls.
This year, the benefit side of the equation isn't just the amount you'd be willing to spend on an election win times the probability your vote is the deciding vote. It's all of that shit times the fate of the United States of America. Because the benefit of voting isn't just your personal benefit. You should also care how the election affects other people. Your benefit should include how the election affects everybody else in the country.
So multiply that side of the equation by the fate of 26 million Americans in danger of losing their health care.
Multiply it by children being separated from their parents at the border.
Multiply it by gerrymandering.
Multiply it by congressional oversight.
Protecting Robert Mueller.
A judicial nominations.
A subpoena of Trump's tax returns.
The future of the environment.
There is so much riding on the outcome of this election. It's unlike any midterm we've ever seen in our lifetimes.
And look, if none of these issues directly impact your life, consider yourselves lucky. There are Americans who will die if they don't have health care through Obamacare. There are Americans who will lose their families if ICE continues to detain children and deport people. For some people, the utility of having this election come out right is infinite.
But like we said, nobody is thinking about this equation when they go to vote. What you should be thinking about boils down to this. If you don't vote, you're an asshole.
And I know that some people are going to be like, oh, you guys are resorting to name-calling. Yes, we are. It's just like all the other collective action problems. Look, if you throw an empty bottle into the woods, you're a dick, okay? Does it make a difference in the grand scheme of things? No, probably not. But everybody agrees you're being a dick.
If you're in a group project and you don't do any work, you're a shithead, David. The group might still get a good grade, but you were being a shithead.
And yeah, if you don't vote, you're an asshole. Maybe your vote wouldn't have changed the outcome, but if you didn't vote, you were being an asshole.
If you realize you know nothing about the issues, skip your econ section and take a couple hours to learn them. If you realize you're not registered, leave your Goldman networking event and fill out the form. And even if this election isn't going to impact you,
Which it will.
but even if you think it won't, know that it will affect others, including your friends here at Yale.
So pull out your GCals, folks, because this Tuesday, we're all grabbing a meal with democracy.